Hi, everyone. My name is Aaron Klein. I am Policy Maps Account Manager, and I just want to welcome you to today's webinar on Claritas PRIZM Premier for colleges and universities. I do apologize for the delay. We were having some technical difficulties starting the webinar, but thank you for your patience. So the Claritas PRIZM Premier data is brand new to Policy Map. So I'm really excited to show you how to access it so that you can hopefully enhance your research and learning. You'll also be really happy to hear that we have added this data for all of our academic customers at no additional charge. Before we get started here, I do want to mention that you will be able to ask questions during the session. Just feel free to type those into the questions tab, and I will do my best to answer as many as I can. We will also be sending a follow-up email tomorrow, and that email is going to contain a recording of the webinar. Now, in case you are not already familiar with this data, PRIZM Premier is a comprehensive market segmentation system developed by the data marketing company Claritas. It classifies every single US household into one of 68 distinct consumer segments, which are based on a combination of different demographic traits, consumer behaviors, and lifestyle indicators. And hopefully you guys are seeing my screen here. Should be working. But this data can be used by researchers and entrepreneurs to better understand consumers and gain insights into their behaviors. So to start off, I'll show you how to access this data and give you an overview of the data menu. And then I'll get into a few use cases that so that you can get a feel for how this data can be used to understand target markets and communities. So let me open up Policy Map here. Just give me 1 second. So the PRIZM Premier data can be found under the Curated Collections tab in the top right corner here. And to begin exploring, I would recommend selecting Predominant Segment. Now, each of the 68 consumer segments are represented by a different color, which you can see in the legend here. So let's actually zoom down to the city of Philadelphia here. And if I hover my mouse over the map, it's going to show us the predominant segment for each geography. The PRIZM Premier data is available at a variety of different geographies, and you can actually select your geography of interest down at the bottom of the legend here. So you'll see what's called the shaded by. We can actually view these segments all the way down to the block group level. Or even up to something like the county level or the zip code level. If you click on a geography, it's going to show you the percentage of households that are in the predominant segment. So we can see that this zip code here, a little over 35% of the households are within this connected Bohemian segment. And then further down here, it's going to show us the top 10 segments for the location. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, I have no idea what any of these segments are. They kind of have some crazy names. Well, the good thing is you can click on a segment and it will redirect you to the Claritas site, which will provide a segment profile. So say we want more information about what this connected Bohemian segment is. I can just click on it here. And this profile is going to explain the different demographic traits of the segment, as well as the lifestyle and media traits down here. It even tells us what the median household income is. But by looking at these traits, we can tell that typically the age range for this segment is between 25 and 44 years old. Most households in this segment are without kids. They're typically renters. And then we also have some additional information here. They like to visit Europe, which is interesting. And then over at the top, it just gives you sort of a general description or overview of the segment. So it looks like, let me just switch back to zip code here. A lot of these zip codes around Center City, Philadelphia are this connected Bohemian segment. And what we can now do is drill down further and figure out which specific areas within these zip codes have a higher percentage of households that are in this segment. So to do that, we can go back into the menu here and we'll go to all segments. And I'll scroll down to Connected Bohemians, which is segment 31 here. And we'll open that up. So what this is showing us is the percentage of households in each, right now we're looking at block group, that are connected Bohemians. We can also look at the number of households in the segment by changing the variable to number in the legend here. So on the left side, I can change from percentage to number. And now this is showing us the estimated number of households in each block group that are in this segment. Another useful tip is that you can click on the eye icon here in the legend, and it will provide you with those same demographic and lifestyle traits that we're showing on the Claritas website. Another great thing about all the data in Policy Map is that, or I shouldn't say all the data, all the layer data, so this is an example of layer data, you can actually click where it says ranges in the legend, and you're able to adjust each one of these cut points here for the ranges. So let's say we wanted to really focus on areas that have maybe a very high percentage of households that are connected Bohemians or very low. What I can do is adjust each one of these. So maybe for the highest range, we'll have it go up to, let's try 25%. And then we'll do something like 20, 10, and 5. And the really nice thing about doing that is rather than having what seems like a really random ranges in this legend, we now have something that's much easier to interpret when we're looking at the map here. So the darker colored areas have a very high percentage. So these are the areas where 25% of households or greater are in this segment. And then these lightest colored areas are the ones where less than 5% are in this segment. And then going back into the menu here, so you'll also see that you can view the predominant social group and life stage group for an area. And the great thing about this Claritas data is that although the 68 different segments can be a little bit overwhelming, Claritas has grouped all of them more broadly into one of 11 life stage groups and one of 14 social groups. And what these groupings do is they provide a more general overview of consumer characteristics, which sort of allows for easier comparison across regions, and it just helps with identifying broader trends. So if we scroll down further in the menu here, we can look at the percentage of households that fall within each social group and each life stage group. And looking at these groups can be very useful if you do not already know what segments you are interested in. And then finally, toward the bottom of the menu here, you will see the core traits that determine the social group or life stage group that a household sits in. So these core traits include urbanicity, income class, age range, and household composition. So hopefully you now have a general understanding of this data and how you can view it in PolicyMap. But I think for you to really see the value of this data, it's important for us to look at a few different use cases. So say you are new to this data and you are unfamiliar with the different segments, but you want to use it to figure out maybe where's the best place to open up a new coffee shop in the city of Philadelphia. So as I mentioned before, the PRIZM Premier data includes different social and life stage groups that provide a more general overview of consumer characteristics. So as a business student developing a business plan for a new coffee shop in Philadelphia, I know that I want to target urban social groups. And what you'll see here is that the menu sorts these social groups by income. So it goes from highest to lowest income. So in my case, maybe I want to target higher income households. So I'll select urban uptown here. And the menu will show me the different segments that fall within this social group. So it looks like there are 4 different segments in this urban uptown social group. But since I don't have a specific segment in mind, I can just click urban uptown. And the map will show us the percentage of households in each geography that fall within that social group. If we then click on the eye icon again, it will show us the different segments that are included in the urban uptown social group. So again, we have these 4 here, along with descriptions for each of those. Now, if we start to read these and we scroll down to this last one, which is the cosmopolitans, we can see here that they enjoy eating at coffee shops, typically. So this is probably a segment that we should look to target. So therefore, let's go ahead and add that segment to the map. So go back into the menu here, and we'll add the cosmopolitans, and I forget which number that is, but you can also search for a segment in the data search bar. So just type in cosmopolitans and it should come up. So another important thing to realize is that the PRIZM Premier data does not just exist in isolation in PolicyMap. So what I mean by that is you can actually layer this data on top of any of our other data sets. To do that, you can switch to the multi-layer view in the top right corner here. So I'll click where it says multi-layer. And this allows you to overlay up to 5 layers at once to see where those layers intersect. So for our coffee shop use case, another data set that we might be interested in looking at would be something like consumer spending habits. So maybe we want to identify areas where people spend more money on food away from home. So I can add that as a second layer here. And then using these ranges in the legends, I can start to adjust these to really narrow in on areas that meet the criteria I'm looking for. So let's look at this at the census tract level. So say we just want to look at census tracts where maybe at least, let's say 25% of households are in this cosmopolitan segment. We can just adjust the left number here to 25. And now the map's just going to show us census tracts in purple, where at least 25% of the households are in this segment. And then for our second layer here, so this is amount spent per household on food away from home. Let's say we want to target areas that have a very high dollar amount on food away from home. So let's change this to maybe at least $4,000 a year. So again, the map readjusts, and now we're just looking at these areas in purple that have a very significant percentage of people within this segment that we're interested in. And the people within these areas typically spend a lot of money on food away from home. So these are probably areas where we might want to think about opening up our coffee shop. Someone asked, how do you search across Claritas segments for attributes such as coffee houses? Good question. So the best way is really using this search bar up here. So you can actually search by keywords and it should pull up what you're looking for. So if we just type in coffee, I think it should pull up any of the segments that have that keyword in the description. So here we have the Cosmopolitans, which is the one we're looking at. And then this other one here, which is Connected Bohemians. I might also be concerned about opening up a cafe somewhere where there might be a lot of competition. So if we had access to a business directory and had the addresses of the different coffee shops in Philadelphia, what I could do is use our feature called the data loader to upload that data into Policy Map and see where those cafes are located in relation to these shaded areas on the map here. Looks like someone just asked this question. So yeah, if you had those addresses available, you could use this data loader at the top right to add those coffee shops as points on the map. So just as an example, unfortunately, I don't have that coffee shop data available, but let's just pretend here, let's say that this data set, I'll just add grocery locations to the map here. So let's just pretend that these are coffee shops. We can now see these areas here that meet our criteria and also don't have a coffee shop currently. So these might be areas where we might want to consider opening up that coffee shop. So in this example, we use the PRIZM Premier data to identify our target market or segment, see what areas have the highest concentration of households in that segment, and then by overlaying the data with data that is already existing in Policy Map, we can determine the ideal location for a new cafe. Someone asked, how should the data be formatted? So if you're uploading point data into Policy Map, really the only requirements are that you have an address, city, state, and zip code column within that CSV file. And we do have more information about the formatting under our help docs page up here. So if you click on help docs, we have a data loader tutorial, and this will explain the formatting for the file. I also recommend joining our advanced features sessions that are open to the public. We have those once a week. And we do go over the data loader feature during those sessions. So hopefully that example gets you thinking about some other ways how business or entrepreneur students can use this data to develop a business plan. Someone asked, is there a way to look at zoning or other regulatory information? So unfortunately, we don't have zoning data in Policy Map. If you happen to have that data available, like the shape files, we do have a data services team that can upload that data for you for an additional fee. So if you're ever interested in that, just feel free to reach out and we're happy to provide you with a quote and just more information about how that process works. Now, from more of like a marketing perspective, I think that marketing students can also find great value in this data by using it to understand things like the media consumption of consumers in order to develop effective marketing strategies. So let's just reset the map here. And let's say a local sporting goods store in northern Seattle is looking for ways to attract more customers with their marketing, but maybe they aren't sure of how to go about doing that. So let me just put in this address here. Let's pretend this is the location of our sporting goods store that we're working with. So as a marketing student, I could take a look at the predominant segment of the areas around the store. And right away, we can see that there are a lot of areas here around the store that are predominantly this young digerati segment. So let's take a look at the description of the segment so that we can understand what their media traits are. So in the profile here, we can see right away that they are tech savvy and they likely spend a lot of time online. So therefore, we should probably focus on some sort of a digital marketing strategy that uses social media ads. And then, as I mentioned before, we can use the multi-layer feature to view this data alongside other data sets to really figure out what specific areas have the target market that we are looking for. So again, we'll switch back to the multi-layer view. I'll add that young digerati segment to the map here, which is segment 4. I don't know what is going on with the legend here. Let me just try that again. There we go. That was weird. And then another thing that we might be interested in looking at would be maybe a health-related data set. So in Policy Map, we can actually view the percentage of people that are physically active in an area. So I'll add that as my second layer. And then just like before, we can adjust the ranges to really see where there are a higher percentage of people within this young digerati segment. So let's do at least 50% of households. And then let's try areas where maybe at least 25% of adults meet physical activity recommendations. So it seems like people in this area are typically very physically active. We can even raise this higher to closer to 30%. Let's do 28%. And now we can see these census tracts here that are located pretty close to the store that meet both of my criteria. So maybe we really want to target the individuals that are within these two areas. With social media ads, just to get more foot traffic into our sporting goods store. So those were just two specific use cases, but as you can imagine, this data can be used in so many different ways. So I really encourage you to just go in here and explore the data if you already have access. If your university does not have a Policy Map subscription, please just feel free to reach out and we would be happy to set you up with a trial and provide you with more information. So I'm just going to open it up for a Q&A session now. So let me know if there are any questions that I can answer about the data or anything else that I've covered. And I should also mention, just again, that we have a help docs page up here. So if there's anything that I didn't cover during this session that you want to learn about, this is a really great resource. We have a video gallery in here, which actually contains a short video about the Claritas data. And you can always reach out to us directly by clicking on this contact button in the top right. Someone asked, let's see, do you have promotional materials for this? It would be nice to have something to share with our business faculty. Yeah, so I can have our marketing team send you promotional materials. I do encourage you also to check out our blogs. So if you go to our main site here, under resources, we have where it says blog. And we did just release a blog on the Claritas data. But I'll have our marketing team reach out to you with other resources. And then someone asked, it appears that some of the data cannot be downloaded. Can any of the Claritas data be downloaded? If so, is there a list of what cannot be? So unfortunately, the Claritas data It's one of the few data sets in PolicyMap that cannot be downloaded. I would say like 98% of the data you are able to download, but unfortunately for the Claritas data, there's no way to pull it outside of PolicyMap. So just keep that in mind. Oh, and there are other questions here. I was not scrolling down. Are there any other upcoming free webinars? Yes, so we have weekly public webinars, which you can access on our help docs page here. At the top, you'll see a link to our training calendar. And this is where you're gonna find all of those. We have a basic session, which just covers the basic features of the tool. And then we also have an advanced features session that goes over the multi-layer feature in more depth, the data loader, and a couple of other things. Someone else asked, is the PRIZM data a short-term or long-term feature of PolicyMap? So we intend to keep this data in PolicyMap for as long as possible. We are really excited to have this available, so I would definitely recommend sharing this video with graduate students or other faculty members. And like I mentioned before, we are going to send out a recording of the session sometime tomorrow. Someone asked, we have churches throughout New England, and we want to develop for housing based on income and age. Can we use the Claritas data to help identify the best sites? Yes, I do think that the Claritas data would be beneficial for that use case, because you can actually go in here and then toward the bottom, you have it by age range. So if you wanted to target a specific age range, you can select one of these. Let's actually switch to the single layer view. Say you're looking to target maybe this youngest age group. You can add that to the map and easily see where there are a higher percentage of households that fall within these segments here. And then same thing for income levels. So you have predominant income class, and you can view the areas that have a higher percentage of people within the wealthier segments, the upscale segments, or any of these other classes. And then there's another question about the PRIZM data and if we're going to continue to update it. So yes, as far as I know, we will continue to update this data as it's released every year. I'm not exactly sure when the new data gets released, but yes, we are planning on updating this data annually. All right, well, if there are no other questions, I just want to thank you for joining the session. I apologize for the delay, but yeah, keep an eye out for the follow-up email that'll be sent out tomorrow. And thanks again for joining. Have a great rest of the week.